So the issue before with the character moving to a different position in the game world from where we set him was because he was parented to one of these empty game objects. So what he was doing was actually inheriting this position of the empty game object, which is why he was moving. So in fact, even though I did put the character within one of these, you would obviously need to drag the character out. And I tested that with Enemy 2 just to ensure that that was the case, and indeed it was. So with the other ones, such as Enemy 3, let me just switch this on. Obviously just drag the character out until it turns into this little line with a little dot on the end. That means that you're dragging it out. Okay. What you don't want to be doing is taking this character out and just simply dragging it on top of there. So if you don't see the line, it means obviously it's being dragged onto something. So there we go. Alright, so Enemy 4 has been dragged out, and just do the rest with the other ones. So I've taken all of the enemies out of these empty game objects, so they're separate from the targets, and I've renamed these from Enemy 1 with targets to just Enemy 1 targets, and so on all the way down to Enemy 6. And obviously these now only contain just the target cubes. Okay, so it should make it easier to work with. Now I also realised I've made a little bit of a mistake. On Enemy 1, obviously I've got a rigid body on there. On Enemy 2, you'll notice that I forgot to put on the rigid body, and without that, obviously the character would never be able to detect the collision with the target object. So let's just give these characters rigid bodies, so we can select all of them, 2 to 6, component, physics, and give each of them a rigid body, okay, which should appear at the bottom. And let's just make that kinematic and don't use gravity. Alright, so now that's fine. Also, with Enemy 1, the layer that the enemy is set to is enemies. Obviously that's not the case with Enemy 2 to Enemy 6, so let's just select them all again. Change the layer to enemies. Yes, change children. Okay, so now obviously the blue light will affect the characters, but our flashlight will not. And in fact, if I now open Enemy 2 and we take a look at the actual lights themselves, both lights, we can find out that the culling mask is currently set to nothing. So we do have to make sure that that is set to enemies. Alright, and you'll need to do that on each of the enemy characters. So just make sure that's done in order that they are actually illuminated and don't just appear like really dark. Okay, so do that for the characters, and then your assignment for this next part is to actually attach weapons to each of these characters. Okay, so the baseball bats, we have the assets, and we have the prefabs. Now, whichever bat you actually quite like the look of. I quite like the look of this one because it's kind of like it's almost got like some old dry blood on it. You know, it looks like a horror type axe. So that one is baseball bat 12 prefab. You may need to do a little bit of resizing on the scale and everything to make it match the character, and obviously just put it into the character's hands. Whichever character you choose is going to be carrying the baseball bat. We've used the Aura axe. If I now click on Knockabot, we've got modern guns, handgun, prefabs. And if we click on active guns, these actually have a couple of scripts attached to them. We've got the gun as well. If you just simply want to put that into one of the character's hands, you'll notice that the animation doesn't quite match up at the moment. We are going to be doing something in the next video to combat that. But set it up for now. And we also have the survival kit light, which has a knife. Okay, so quite nice. And once again, you may need to change the scale on this. So just assign that to a character. Now we only have 4 weapons, but we have 6 characters. So decide which character gets which weapon, and parent that to the hand the right hand of each of the characters. Okay, so that's your assignment for now, and in the next video we will then sort out the gun animation.